So Prodigy was kind enough to send me out a couple of their new Isaac Robinson collab series, The Archive. It's 5502, and they sent me one in their 500 plastic and one in their 400 plastic. And when I first pulled these out of the box, I felt them and I was like, huh, they're kind of deep. Not super deep, but I think they mostly feel deep because they have a really good dome on them. The disc that I throw right now in a similar slot, 5501, is this Pathfinder with my cash dash on it. But when I first picked up these discs, I was like, wow, that feels remarkably similar to an EMAC Truth. Shout out Secret Disc Golf. They had given me one of these when I was in Kansas City. There are some differences that you can definitely tell, which we'll explore in a second, but I'm not sure if the Pathfinder really is going to compare to the stability of these Archives. So I also brought out my Birdie Disc Golf Supply Ultras. But we're going to throw this Pathfinder compared with both these Archives and the EMAC Truth on 6 holes here at Farringer Ranch to see if they should have a spot in your bag or maybe take over one in mine. But I kind of think they're in between two of the discs that I'm really liking right now, being the Pathfinder and the Ultra. But we're just going to get started on hole 9. It's a 610-foot par 4. We're going to play it as one big full flex shot and see how far they can go, and then probably just one hyzer because I'm hoping we should get about 350 to 360 with them. Also, I would be remiss not to tell you, I do have some of those discs as you watch it get a really nice full flight. I'm interested to see if there are any differences between these two. This is the 500, which, first off, let's take a look at the stamp, which is pretty sweet. I like the little rainbow double full that they have going on. These, I think we're gonna have to put on a decent bit more flex than that, even with this left-right one. Yeah, you can see it's a little lower and a little more nose down and it is fighting out, but it's so glidey, like there's such a big dome that I think it's gonna be similar distance, even though I didn't really get a hold of it. Here's the 400. Oh gosh. Wow, stable though. Wow, rip that. Okay, not as stable as the Archives. Wow, not even close. Whoa, why is the Archive so much more stable than that? What? And now for the Ultras. First, the really stable one, my Color Glow one. I'm gonna have to rip this on some Anheuser. Way more stable than those Archives. And so much flatter, so you saw it turned a lot, got out of it and came back a lot. Here's my super speculative thought. I have absolutely zero inside information. I don't know if Gannon's future at Prodigy is secured yet. And so I'd wonder if this is a disc that was initially created for Gannon because he really likes M2s and has some money around of M2s as compared to Isaac, who isn't really known for throwing those discs. And so maybe this was initially in pre-production as a mold that was gonna be for Gannon, but his future, especially with what happened earlier in the season, is uncertain with them. So they gave it to Isaac, who seems to have a much more sure future with Prodigy and is also a major champion and an absolutely incredible top 5, top 10 player in the world. Honestly, I don't think the Ultras are close. They're definitely a different breed. They're much more like the MX-1. So I don't think we're gonna throw these. We're just gonna throw the Pathfinder. See, it works. Oh, not something I would do, but it does work. The EMAC Truth. So all of the traditional mid-ranges that aren't the super overstable ones, the EMAC Truth, the Archive, Pathfinder, they all have that wobble, and these Archives. See, it's just because of the dome, or maybe because it is more like a traditional mid-range. Obviously good flight, but you saw all that wobble as it came out of my hand. Not something I typically prefer, and that's why I don't really think that's a disc that I will be throwing on forehand much, unless I'm throwing it like I do my Pathfinders, which I do forehand, but very touch forehand, not power forehand. Whoa, that is so overstable. I didn't really force it over too much because I was afraid of it getting all that wobble and really rolling it, but it's not the best showing for me right here. I hope you couldn't see that putt, honestly. We do not need to look at that. Good thing this is a video about the flights of these discs. Before we go ahead and throw this hole, let's take a quick look at the profile of these guys. It's gonna be pretty obvious to tell some differences between the Pathfinder and the Archive. You see the Pathfinder is just a little bit smaller. It even seems a little smaller diameter here. And that's kind of what I like. I like a smaller mid. Definitely not quite as torque resistant or stable as this, but that's not really what I have this slot for. This is really more my point and shoot, punch on a little hyzer and let it just ride straight forever with a little finish. This is definitely a little bit more of a flex player's mid-range, and you can also tell at the side there, it's gonna be a little blunter. It's gonna have a little bit more of not like a just dome down to the wing, but a little straighter, which is why initially I thought it was pretty similar. Oh, it's gonna keep, I think that's a face. Shout out Cash Dad. Pretty similar to the EMAC Truth. But the EMAC Truth is definitely a little thinner this way. It's also a little shallower and has a micro bead at the bottom, whereas this one is beadless. This is gonna be a little deeper in your hands than the EMAC Truth for sure, but it also fits almost as comfortably, which is why I felt like they were very similar when I first pulled them out of the box. And then this is kind of why the Ultra comparison doesn't really work, because it's super flat and overstable compared to that. Way more flat and overstable. Pretty short one, but I think it'll be good to show. It's 260 feet. I know that this is a mid-range distance for a lot of people, and it's slightly downhill. So we're gonna throw these all on a tight flex to get through that kind of middle gap up there and have it like kind of finish flat by the basket. And we're gonna just start with the Pathfinder. That's my disc, so if I can't throw it super well, you know we got some problems. I think it's gonna be inbounds. It might be OB in the creek, but you can see it like started to get out of it and continue pushing forward instead of getting out of it and fighting back to the left. So throw the 400, the kind of more C-line plastic archive first. Exactly like that. Got out of it, got through the gap, and finished back left. These are much more shot shaping mid-ranges than the Pathfinder because of how stable they are. Go in the basket. Oh, I thought I made it. I really like the flight of these guys. Seems very good for woods, where the Pathfinder is good for woods, but a little more hyzery. Yeah, okay. That is definitely closer to the Pathfinder than the Archives. The Archives, I think it's just because of the depth or something. Those are some stable discs. EMAC Truth got saved. Okay, I remember that a putt. Pathfinder's OB, but easy par. And these guys, solid. I really can see Isaac throwing this all over the place. I don't know if we'll see it at Worlds too much, because I don't know if he's had time enough to get comfortable with it in his bag, and it is a pretty wooded course, so you have to trust your discs. But I could definitely see like you wanting to be able to put something just on Anheuser that flattens out to straight and then hooks up. I think that's the only one of these three discs that can do that. 400 Archive is gonna be up first. I think we're just gonna put a touch of flex towards the right side of this island, because it is an island green. You have to make it on, otherwise there is a 45-foot drop zone. Ah, that's some slippage. Well, that's definitely not as hard as I could have or should have. I'm kind of impressed with how much overstability and glide this has. I do kind of prefer the 500. It really reminds me of like a Meta Plastic from Discmania. Uh-oh. Swing. Safe, barely. Wow, that thing is stable. EMAC Truth. I think I'm gonna throw the same line, but I'm gonna throw it towards the left side. Because it will get out of it, but it's gonna take so much more time. And that is barely in bounds, just like that 500 plastic one. Pathfinder, similar. Same turnover, but towards the left side. Just a lot more like glide on the Anheuser. Doesn't want to fight out of it. Definitely felt myself knowing that these were mids, and so I kind of backed off them slightly compared to like how hard I probably should have thrown all of them, honestly. I'm so bad at elevated baskets. There we go. I can definitely see why Ezra's Isaac Scannons would want something like this in their lineup, because I'm not even that big of a power player, and I'm seeing a lot of like really good utility or potential from this disc. Now this hole is 335 feet down and to the right. We do have a slight tailwind, but this is where I see the need more for like a Pathfinder like disc, where I can throw it on that turnover and it's gonna really pan on it and it will get out of it. It's just gonna get out of it probably like 85 to 90% in its flight range, whereas the Archive's gonna start getting out of it closer to like 55 to 75%. Archives do still have the box. We'll see if we can turn these over enough and see just kind of how much they want to glide. Ooh, this thing go. The other difference too is that you're gonna get a little more like ground action, because when they get back on that edge, I've seen they have a little bit of a renewed life. That is very overstable. Wow. EMAC Truth here. Ah, that's not it either. Still gotta give it some angle. Wow, the thing goes far though. And Pathfinder. There we go. See, that Pathfinder is just very straight, which the numbers would tell you that, but it is so much straighter than all those other ones. Still kind of got to look in EMAC Truth. Whew, in the Archive here. Oh, now one disc that I have not included in this because I don't have anymore are the Kotukus. The RPM discs, also 5502, might be one of the closest counterparts to the archive, but it is so much flatter for the most part. These shots are way closer than anticipated. Pathfinder might be out of bounds though. Just so close to hanging on. And this archive to stay pretty much perfect. But back to Gotoku, I found that was much more similar to like ultra comfortability, meaning I like to forehand it a lot more because it wasn't quite as domey. So we're about to get onto a simple little forehand hole, not something that's anything ridiculous for a mid-range, but I am interested to see how this thing forehands if I really focus on spinning it instead of giving it speed, which for me is what I found is the key to forehanding putters and mids, is really focusing on just snapping your wrist. All right, so we're looking at the basket right there, 255. The wind is always pushing on a left to right, meaning that when you throw into it on a hyzer, you're gonna be throwing a little more headwind than the left to right that you're feeling off the tee pad. My favorite so far. I don't know, I think it's just because it's a little stiffer than the 400, but still plenty gummy. We're gonna put a lot of spin and a lot of hyzer and hopefully park it. It's gotta sit down. It's gotta hit a house. Oh, I think that's OB. Okay, leave it even wider and lower, I think. Little 400 guy. Yeah, that's pretty perfect. EMAC Truth, so much more hyzer. It's not nearly that torque resistant. Wow, that's just like a flick from the hip, but you saw that thing stand up the whole way. I think the Pathfinder is very similar to that EMAC Truth, just slightly less stable. Oh my gosh. Get back, get back, get back. That's a great forehand into head left to right with a Pathfinder. What a fun shot to try to throw. For that, I'm literally just feeling like I'm in the Wild West, just going. Like pulling out the holster and giving it a rip. A quick salute to the wind dummy that went OB. Hopefully we could save par. Basket's just around that tree. Or around the tree. Oh man. Putting is kind of atrocious in this video, I apologize. Everything's kind of clawing back to be pretty even with itself. And we got one more hole left. EMAC Truth snagged the box. It's 300 feet right there, probably closer to like 290 probably. You have to throw it left of that Mando. And so I think the play honestly is either just going in front of or just behind that tree. For a straighter disc like the EMAC Truth and Pathfinder, I think the play is just in front of that tree because it's going to be pushing forward as it just gets in front of it. For these ones, I think it's probably going to be to go on the opposite side. So we're going to try to throw all of these to the right side of the tree. Just so straight, such a good disc. Not as much as I thought, get around it. Wow, that's terrible. So much more stable. Sneaky. Oh, I thought I was gonna go through there. It probably needs to be more like an ultra stability where you really rip it over and it really gets back. That's still, all of those might have needed to have gone straight. I guess you can probably tell which this side bag. I'm gonna go snag those and throw them one more time. We're just gonna try to laser beam all these at the basket on the correct level of like flex to flat. Smallest amount of flex, I think Pathfinder is gonna be flat, and then the archives are gonna have to be a little more flex. Oh wow, that drifts when you throw like that. I thought it'd be a lot straighter, but it makes me think with this wind, I'm gonna put like a touch of hyzer on this Pathfinder. No, it's just a laser. Didn't flip, just stayed on hyzer, which makes me happy because I didn't want that thing to flip up on that level of hyzer. I wanted it to be a little more stable, and it was. These archives, these will have to, I think that same shot is that EMAC Truth, just a touch of flex. Get through that. That would have been the coolest ace ever. Oh my gosh. Just like that. Wow, it's so stable. It's gonna land like with the Pathfinder, and that thing was on the same amount of anhyzer as the Pathfinder was on hyzer. All right, I got someone behind me, so we'll just kind of show you where these landed. Here's the EMAC Truth, probably about 40 feet. Clutch. I really thought that was gonna be a little more stable. Here's the 400 archive, or 500. Oh God, I'm so glad I'm not putting these. Here's the Pathfinder. Almost the same spot. Of course it's in the water. The 400 archive back there. So I wouldn't quite go as far as I've seen some people say and like say that this is a forehandable mid-range. It's still touchy on the forehand. I'm very pleasantly surprised by this archive. The more discs I've thrown, I basically don't find a lot of discs that a mainstream company will put out that is not a really good disc. It just is all gonna depend on like where it fits, which is why I threw all these as comparisons, just so you could see. Obviously Cash Stash is the best, so go snag one at botanzasgolf.com. But it really just depends on like what your stock shots are. And for me, it's a touch of hyzer. Like that hyzer that I threw that Pathfinder on, that's a comfortable stock shot. But if I was in the woods and I needed that shot shape, I would probably prefer to throw this over the Ultra. If I throw these both on flex, this is probably gonna start its turn around a tree at like 230, 260 feet, whereas that will maybe get around that tree if that tree is around 300 feet away from me. So that's one of the things that you can think about as well, is how far it's going to stay on the anhyzer before it flexes out. One last quick shot with my favorite archive, 500 plastic. Filming the Vanguard video, but we're about to ace 383 foot hole with the archive. It's no ace. Not quite an ace with the archive, but pretty solid finish. If you want to check out another recent review, check out the Vanguard review, Discmania 9-speed. See you guys tomorrow.